So if you've ever wondered how much it costs to modify an Audi RS3 into the Stage 2 power, then that's what I'm going to be talking about today. We'll go over how much it costs, how much power it makes, and how much faster it made the car. So let's get right into it now. Alright, so hey guys, as you may know if you've been watching the channel for a while, this is my wife's Audi RS3 that we picked up about 8 months ago. Now, I own an Evo 10, she previously owned an Evo 10. We were more used to modifying Evos and Japanese vehicles and powers and parts that you need for those. So coming into getting an Audi RS3, it already had a few modifications, but we knew we wanted to add our own touches and add a little bit more power. But we kind of had no idea of how much things cost. You always hear about the European tax on Euro cars. Everything's more expensive than Japanese cars or Australian American cars, that sort of thing. So yeah, we went in completely blind. You see parts pop up, you see tuning packages pop up, but really what do you need to make the sort of power you want? So we kind of started doing some research, talking to some people like fellow RS3 owners, and just talking to some workshops and stuff. So we ended up going with the Stage 2, as they call it, which is pretty much adding a downpipe from the turbo and, you know, intercooler, and sort of freeing up the engine as much as possible before you would change the turbo. Pretty much Stage 1 is what the car came with, and that just had an aftermarket intake and a tune, just a flash tune. It was just a generic sort of laptop tune. And yeah, we wanted to get a custom tune. We wanted to add an intercooler to keep it cooler on really hot days like today, because yeah, we are in Australia and it gets very hot in summer. So an intercooler felt like a very worthwhile upgrade. Now we could have just added that and left it, which we did do. We originally fitted the intercooler that we picked up, but we wanted to get a bit more sound out of it, get a bit more power, and put it on E85. So we decided to go with the Stage 2 Plus, which I think is what people generally call it. So we have added a downpipe, a front end intercooler, and some injectors, as well as we did some preventative maintenance as well. So if you want to know how much it costs to go Stage 2 and how much it costs us for this package onto the car, which now makes 310 kilowatts at the wheels on 98 pump fuel and 355 kilowatts at the wheels on E85. And that was during a summer day, so maybe add a little bit more to that on like a cooler day. But then the cost for us to do all this was around $9,500. The car already had the intake, so let's say if we added a cheap version of an aftermarket intake, around, you know, bit over $10,000. That's what we paid. We didn't go a sort of basic route. We got a custom tune, we got some extra little goodies, so you could do it for as cheap as about $5,000. So if that's all you wanted to know for the video, then great. Hopefully I got to that pretty quick. But what I'm going to do now is actually cover all the parts that we got, what exactly we added part-wise, and how much they all cost, and would I change anything? Am I happy with the power? All that sort of things. So first of all, we've left the exhaust as is. So the catback is still fine. What we added was downpipes and mid-pipe. So the downpipe is catless and mid-pipes were also catless. But you know, if you're like me, coming from like the Evo 10 world, or just Japanese cars, I guess, this is on the stock turbo. So it's way faster than my Evo 10 is, for example, with a lot more money spent and a bigger turbo. I still have like the stock frame turbo, but these cars can make a lot of power without really doing much. The trade-off for that is some of the parts are more expensive, but if you look at it big picture, you're spending less overall to get more power. So that's where I've kind of landed on it. Yes, some parts cost more, like the front mount intercoolers for these cost a lot more than, you know, a Japanese car's front mount intercooler, but they're pretty well designed as well. So we ended up going with the Wagner tuning front mount intercooler. It's the Evo 3. The reason why we like this, this is what we were looking at anyway, but it popped up sort of second-hand used we could pick up. So it's black, obviously harder to see. But what I like about it is the crash bar is like built into it. So a lot of the intercoolers you have to buy, you've got to get an aftermarket crash bar to go over the front. This design for this intercooler, it's all in one. Its intercooler is like a 2-stage with the crash bar. You can see possibly through there. It goes all the way along. So you've got sort of the top part of the intercooler, the bottom part, crash bar in the middle. So it all just goes on as one piece. So super cool design. And that we picked up used. They cost a lot of money new, but we picked that up for $1,700. So it's a pretty good price, but you can get an intercooler for as cheap as like $1,000. So, you know, that's one part I would definitely suggest grabbing. Next thing we had to get was the downpipe. So there is one other part before that I wanted to sort of talk about that isn't needed. So we have this little guy right here is the DS1 dongle. So I'll open the bonnet while I'm here, but that is something we added. So that is a cost of $2,200. Now, what that will do is, that's like a tuning software thing. So yes, it comes with some tunes loaded onto it, but we went with a custom tune, like I said. So, and I will actually say our tuner, Tarmac Engineering, is who we went with. Fantastic custom tune. The car's on a dyno. It's, you know, he's looking at everything. He's doing multiple runs. He's finding issues. He's fixing them. He's not just plugging a laptop in, flashing a tune on, and off you go. So he actually found an issue the car had that we wouldn't have known about, which was a melted line around the back here. So yeah, if just loading onto the laptop, as he said, that could have been there from before the previous tune was done. It was over boosting, which is what he found was the issue, and putting more power and ethanol through it may have caused more issues in the long run. So he wanted to fix that. So he spent some time finding the issue, you know, and yeah, definitely recommend, like, yeah, in the Evo world, we don't really do the flash in tunes. Every tune is custom for a car. That's the way it should be. Even if you have the same mods as someone else, every engine's different. So yeah, we went with that sort of mentality here for the RS3 as well. We didn't want just the custom, just the basic flash generic tune. We wanted a custom tune to suit the car. So yeah, it's not overboosting anymore. It's running great. And it was only like overboosting a little bit, but he said as time went on, if those lines got worse, you know, so yeah, highly recommend getting a custom tune for the car, which is going to cost a little bit more. So with that DS1 dongle I showed you, it came with tunes on it, I believe, but we didn't use those. We got the tune instead. So that dongle is $2,200. Now what it allows is flex fuel, and I'll show what the dash sort of can do with it. It allows up to 10 maps. So we've got, like, you know, a valet map, we've got a 98, we've got an E85, we've got a valet 98 map. Like, so when I say 98, we're in Australia here, that's our pump fuel, premium pump fuel. And we've got the valet E85 map, as well as the full boost 98 and the full boost E85 maps. We've got safety maps, we've got fan cooling maps where the fans are turned up if you're like racing or something. So definitely cool. And we could able to display the ethanol content, we were able to display the coolant temp, all sorts of things through on the digital dash, which is really cool. So that is how that all works. And obviously for the tuner as well, it gives them a lot more capabilities with their tuning. They can see a lot more what the engine's doing with knock and all sorts of things. So our tuner recommended it. Some friends that also have them recommended them. So that's what we went with. So yeah, anyway, that is something we had to get. So that's $2,200. The intake you can see here is an Venturi intake. Very, very nice. That came on the car. That's a very expensive part. This is like a $3,500 intake. Probably, as much as I love it, probably wouldn't have spent that much if I was buying it. So glad it came on the car though, because it's definitely a great intake. But you can get intakes for about $800. So yeah, that's something you could get. It'll be more like an open pod with like a cover over it rather than like a full carbon thing. But you know, you could get something like that for $800. What we did get was the JDY catless downpipe. Now, obviously you can't really see that. It is all the way down there. But that is what has really given the car a lot of power. It changed the sound. The sound is now incredible above sort of 4,000 RPM. It really starts to scream, kind of give that V10 type sound. So for the downpipe, you could get anything from $1,000 to, who knows, $2,000 plus. We spent $1,500. We bought a lightly used one. It was the one that we wanted. A new one was only about $1,750. So it wasn't a huge saving, but we're always sort of looking for bargains. So I mean, I should say Letisha, she's really good at finding parts. So she found that, and we got that added on. Next up is some injectors. So we got some Bosch 1050cc injectors. Obviously it's 5 cylinders, so there's 5 of them. And surprisingly cheaper to do injectors on this car than it was for my Evo 10. Evo 10, you only have obviously 4 cylinders, so 4 injectors, but I went 1200 cc's, but even my old 1000 cc's that I used to have, were still a little bit more than these, I believe. So these were $640 for the 5 injectors. So that allows the car to get the full use of E85. So we could have left the stock injectors from what the tuner was telling me, but we wouldn't have really gotten past sort of like E60 capabilities. We wouldn't have made the full power that we can with the aftermarket injectors. And for $640, pretty much well worth getting in my mind to get the full use of E85 and the stage 2 tune. So yes, we could have added a catback exhaust. You know, the turbo inlet, we actually have not changed. So that a lot of tuners will say that you need that. Our tuner said not to worry about it. It's not going to make much of a difference, but those are, you know, $1,000 to $1,500, you know, probably $500 to $1,500. Being an Australian car, not always they're going to fit, because obviously you have right and left-hand drive variants of the car. So some are made for the American market and they might not fit with the setup we have. So basically everyone was sort of saying you need the Venturi version, which obviously would have been great. It's carbon fiber, matches the intake, and that is apparently a bit of a restrictive part of the car. But our tuner said not to worry about it. He doesn't recommend it. So we left it. So that saved us a little bit of money. And yeah, that is all we really needed. So the intake, I don't think really adds a whole lot of power, but the sound does. Maybe it didn't on stage 1, but you know, I've heard mixed results, but since we didn't add this, we don't really know if it adds power. But yeah, it definitely is a nice huge intake, and it adds a lot of sound, which I think adds to the character of the car. So that is something that, yeah, you could spend $800, you could spend $3,500, whatever you want. They're all going to sound a lot better. The downpipe, definitely recommend it. It's what you need if you're going this stage 2 route. And then the DS1 dongle, you don't need, but again, I would recommend. We're glad we went that route, and yeah, I like the E85 displayed on the screen. I like the switchable maps. So what you could do at the cheapest end, like I said at the start, you could spend about $5,000. You could have it on E85, you could have an intercooler, downpipe, intake, and just have a single E85 tune without the extra software licensing for the DS1. You can just get a custom tune or one of the maps just like the DS1, where you just plug it in and you put a stage 2 map on it. Yes, you could do that and just have it on E85. We have the ability to just put whatever fuel we want whenever we want. And obviously those extra features like the fan mode to cool the car down quicker when we're, say, at a roll racing or something, or a really hot day if we want. We have the valet maps we can put on where there's not really any boost, so the car drives a lot, yeah, it's less fast, I guess, if we were to let someone else drive the car. In saying that, the car does still drive really great on E85 with the full power, as long as you stay off, you know, wide open throttle. And surprisingly, the car is actually pretty fuel efficient. So we just took it away for Christmas. We had our 2 dogs in the back, all our luggage, and we went, you know, interstate, and we got it down to 8.2 litres per 100 kilometres just on motorway driving. So in comfort mode with the aircon on and the windows up, sunroof closed and everything, and just cruising in seventh gear in auto, it's really fuel efficient. But then obviously we were ready for Christmas, so I was taking some family and relatives and everything for little drives and showing them how fast it was, and then yeah, straight back into comfort mode, and it just quietens down and it's all good again. So yeah, it's great. Like, as a stage 2 car, I highly recommend adding the stage 2. It was fun as stage 1. It was, you know, as fast or faster than my Evo, which is 300 kilowatts with slightly less power, just because it has that different gearing and yeah, a little bit more top end being a 5-cylinder. But now it is an absolute monster. It has really shocked us when we've taken it roll racing, which you would have seen in a previous video, and the sound is just next level now. It really does sound great. So yeah, to sum it up, basically, for the few parts you need, you'll make more power. So like I said at the start, 355 kilowatts on on E85. Now, some people were saying 380 kilowatts on E85. Could have been a really cold day, could have been a happier dyno. We could have had a hot day and a not as happy dyno. Who knows, but this thing will run 10-second quarter miles, which I will soon be taking it to the drag strip and trying my best to get that 10-second quarter mile. But from what the tuner's telling us, it will do that no problems at all. It already ran a mid-11 before, and it is so much faster now, so I could see that. It really holds its own against some quite fast cars in roll racing because it just has that crazy top end that you don't expect. So yeah, 310 kilowatts on 98, 355 kilowatts on E85. My Evo, for example, is right on 295 kilowatts on E85 and only about 255 on 98 fuel. And that is so many more modifications needed. You need a turbo manifold, you need a turbo, intake, injectors, fuel pump, yeah, the E85 tune, you need full exhaust all the way through. So this needs so few mods to make more power. That's where I think the sweet spot of these is as well, is that stage 2 E85. Obviously there's 1,000+ horsepower examples out there that would be a lot of fun, but for a daily driver, which is what this is, highly recommend. So yeah, just to quickly cover, our cost was $9,500 for what you see here, the power and everything. We could have gotten cheaper parts. We could have saved by getting some other things, but that's the route we went. And then if you add an intake, we probably would have gotten like an $800 to $1,000 intake. Around $10,500 is what this car would owe us if we bought it stock standard and then we were to do all of the modifications. So it just, obviously didn't have to do the intake. Everything else we did. So yeah, I think it's worth spending that, and that is a bargain for what you get. So yeah, hopefully this video helped. It's all just kind of like a one take, going over what I remember and what I think. I'll put a few clips of how the car goes now that it's stage 2, how it sounds, but yeah, we did take it roll racing, so make sure you check that video out. It was a lot of fun. The car did really well. So yeah, that's about all I've got to say for this one. If you have any questions, let me know. And just remember, I'm new to this whole RS3 community, so I don't know everything. I'm not as well informed like I am with the Evos. So if I'm completely wrong on some things, feel free to let me know. But yeah, that's where we're going to end it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.